Okay, in this video, I'm gonna do a lateral ankle taping, which you would usually do to prevent an inversion type sprain, or if there's already damage to these lateral ligaments out here. And so normally you would want to tape directly to the skin, but because we're not necessarily looking for maximum efficiency right here, I put pre-wrap on my test dummy. And so yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do a prophylactic inversion ankle taping. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put 3 anchor strips up at the top of my pre-wrap, just below the musculotendinous junction, where the gastroc starts to V into the Achilles tendon. And I'm gonna put these at an angle that matches the taper of the legs, so there's not a whole bunch of wrinkles. And I'm gonna put 3 anchors up here, halving the tape each time. And then I'm gonna put 1 anchor strip down around the midfoot, just below, or making sure not to compress the 5th metatarsal head over here. And I'm trying not to put very much tension on this one, just kind of laying it on there. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put 3 stirrups on. For most of these strips on this, since we're trying to prevent inversion of movement of the ankle, we're going to be pulling medial to lateral, kind of pulling that foot into eversion to protect these lateral ligaments. That's just on most of these strips, not all of them. So for the stirrup, we're going to start up here on the medial side of the lower leg stirrups. We're going to go down just posterior to the medial malleolus, around the bottom of the foot, up the other side. And this is where we're going to want to put our tension. We're going to want to pull that foot up and attach it over here on the lateral side. And we're going to layer these forward just a little bit. We want the second one to go almost directly over top of the malleolus. And then the last one we want to go just on the anterior side of the malleolus. And again, we're going to want all our tension pulling up, pulling laterally. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put some circular strips to kind of lock these stirrups in and close off all these ragged ends. So we're going to start up here just like we did with our anchors. We're going to put circulars, halving each time. As you can see, that angle's still there because we're still tapering it down the lower leg. As the leg gets smaller, that angle will change, and eventually that angle will go from this to this once we get down to the horseshoes. We're just going to keep working our way down. And these circular strips are eventually going to turn into our horseshoes as that angle changes. Now this one is going to be our first horseshoe. We're going to start it down here at the anchor around the midfoot, and we want to be just on the superior of this medial malleolus here. And we're going to want 2 to 3 anchors depending on the size of the ankle and where we're able to start the anchors. I don't know why I can't do this. attaching right to the anchor. And the lower we get, the more parallel we're going to want to be with the bottom of the foot and these metatarsal bones. And take it right around the back side of the calcaneus and right in line with the 5th metatarsal there. Now that we've done that, we're going to want to secure it all down with a figure 8. And the way I do a figure 8 is I like to start just anterior to the medial malleolus there, straight up and down. And what I want to do is I'm going to pull it around the bottom of the foot. And sometimes you'll have an open space here on the bottom of the foot, and this is a good strip to try to cover that. As you can see, I kind of have a little bit of an open spot right there. And so I'm going to use this to cover that up. And sometimes there's also an open spot right here that you can cover it with this figure 8. So I'm going to go around the bottom of the foot, back up on top of the anterior aspect of the ankle, and then once around the lower leg. And I'm going to end just posterior to where I started my figure 8. Now I'm going to go on the heel. I'm going to go to the heel locks, and I'm going to switch sides. I'm going to put the tape in my left hand this time. And to start these heel locks, I'm going to start just below or just towards the bottom of where I have my lower leg anchors. I'm going to have about a 45-degree angle. It can be different depending on the size of the ankle, depending on how you like to do your heel locks. But you always want to try to find that angle that works for you. And so I'm going to pull down, go just behind the lateral malleolus, under and around the heel, and then along the bottom of the heel and back up around the front of the ankle. And it's going to end just a little bit below where I started. And I'm going to do that again on the other side. Now this is the only strip that we start on lateral and go medial, but the strip is still pulling the ankle lateral to medial. So the first heel lock came down and around the ankle and is pulling the heel laterally. The second one comes down the opposite way and it pulls the ankle, or pulls the heel medially. And so I'm going to go over them again. I'm going to do 2 heel locks on each side. And back up to the front. And then one more pulling that heel medially. And now I'm just going to want to do some more circular strips to close off all these loose ends up here, to kind of lock down those heel locks and cover any openings that we might still have, which we shouldn't at this point. We're going to start up at the around the musculotendinous junction, work our way down. This is similar to what we did a few steps ago. After we put our stirrups on, we're doing circulars all the way down, and then they're eventually going to turn into those horseshoes once we get down there closer to the foot. I'm going to start my horseshoe just where I started them last time. Make sure they're getting all the way down there to the foot, to that anchor. And still pulling medial to lateral. Still pulling medial to lateral. Now I'm gonna do one more circular strip around the midfoot to cover up all these ragged ends down here that all my horseshoes created. So I'm gonna cover those up, make them look all nice and smooth. And I'm just laying this one on. I don't want to pull a whole lot of tension into this one because that can compress all those metatarsals together, which we don't want because the foot's gonna want to splay out whenever we step down onto the ground. And then the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do another figure 8. Just like the one we did earlier, start on the anterior side of the medial malleolus, going down around below the foot, up on top of the ankle, and once around the lower leg. And I want to end just next to where I started. Now, last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mold. Make sure there's nothing sticking up. Make sure it's all sticking where it should be. And that is a prophylactic ankle taping for the lateral ligaments.